At Snowbird, we're thankful to have the folks at Snowbird joining us for a live conversation in just a few minutes. Our Lincoln Graves will join us to talk about flooding concerns. It'll just continue to be a talker for at least the next few weeks, even months at this point. Let's get it going. First, we're going to start with our headlines. These are what you can find right now on our website, KUTV.com. First, an Idaho judge says opening statements in Lori Vallow Daybell's murder case will happen on Monday after days of jury selection. Right now, the court is still trying to find enough jurors for the trial. As we look over here at our second headline, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints giving an update on Elder Jeffrey R. Holland's health. Elder Holland did not attend last weekend's general conference after he tested positive for COVID-19. Salt Lake City Police's gang unit safely arrested a 16-year-old who they accuse of shooting a gun over the weekend in downtown Salt Lake. They say the investigation started just before 2 a.m. on Saturday. Now, finally, over a half dozen Utah resorts reporting record snowfall for the season. This includes 3 resorts reporting over 800 inches, Alta, Brighton, and Snowbird. As we go in depth tonight, you can always get in touch with us throughout the show. Use the hashtag 2NewsLive. You can join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, also on TikTok these days. Make sure you send us something there to weigh in. Interlodge in effect for the town of Alta and Snowbird after an avalanche took place around 12:30 today. People were in the area. They were told to take shelter immediately following the incident as officials started to clear the area and then search for anyone stuck in the snow. We do want to get a live update here from the folks at Snowbird in just a moment, but they released a statement earlier saying that the avalanche naturally occurred on the south-facing lower section of Mount Superior. The range of the avalanche ran across Little Cottonwood Canyon into the western side of Snowbird's Chickadee Trail. The lift and the trail were both open at the time of the avalanche, and then of course interlodge quickly ensued after that because of the imminent danger. We had a few photos and a few videos sent our way. You've got them on your screen, but we also want to get a little bit more information on where things stand right now. Happy to have Sarah Sherman joining us, communication manager for Snowbird Resort. Sarah, thank you for a few minutes. Obviously a frantic search from your ski patrollers using beacons and probes, avalanche rescue dogs, Reco technology. We saw the folks from DPS also there. Sounds like we had a good ending at this point.
Yes, we're really, really grateful and relieved to hear that there were no people caught in the debris from the slide. Our teams responded immediately and used the methods you mentioned to ensure that, and we're grateful that at this time.
How does everyone work together between Snowbird, between UDOT, between the town of Alta to determine if interlodge should go into effect or if the resort is really safe at this point to enjoy?
It's a multifaceted equation up there. UDOT oversees the road. The town of Alta has their own structure. Snowbird is under its own structure. But when avalanche mitigation is taking place, we all coordinate to call those interlodges. So if UDOT is doing avalanche mitigation above Snowbird, we will be an interlodge for that, and same for the town of Alta.
Sarah, is there concern for more of these natural slides to continue to take place in the area, given kind of the conditions we're experiencing right now?
I think right now they are continuing avalanche mitigation work out of an abundance of caution. Our guest and employee safety is always the top concern, and the road is still closed with no estimated time of opening, and Snowbird is still in interlodge. So they will continue those measures and continue to keep the road closed and interlodge in effect until they feel confident that people can go outside.
What's the big takeaway from today's events for you, Sarah?
This storm has been historic, not just in breaking our snowfall totals up here, but also, by the results we're seeing, by the length. This is the longest road closure on record for Little Cottonwood Canyon, surpassing February of 2021. So I think the takeaway for us is to, thank you for everyone for their patience. These closures happen for a reason, and we're going to get through it, and we're really grateful for everyone at this time.
Well, I know you've been stuck at Snowbird before. I say that lovingly, right, because you do work there, but you've been interlodged. You've been stuck up there because of a road closure. I mean, the road has been closed since Sunday night I'd have to imagine once that road opens, some folks will be rejoicing at this point. But how is everybody doing? I mean, this has been an extremely long winter for your staff, digging out lifts. There's a lot of back-breaking work that goes into getting the resort back up and running for people to enjoy.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it is a lot of work up there. We are really grateful for our guests for being patient. We're so incredibly grateful for our employees who've been working around the clock. It's no joke up there, and it takes a toll not just on them, but their families as well. So we have nothing but gratitude and respect for them continuing to dig out, to do the work, and for our guests for their patience as we wait to see the situation move forward.
Sarah, thank you for the time. Thank you for the update. I'm glad everything worked out to the best possible scenario from something that obviously is one of those incidents you trained for and our patrollers are ready for. So thank you for providing the update for us tonight.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, let's take a live look here at Snowbird. You just saw it. Part of the canyon area under sunshine. It looks quite nice, but part of the road still is being worked on. A reminder, Little Cottonwood Canyon has been closed since Sunday night. Countless avalanches have hit the road. We got a chance to not only speak with UDOT today, but to take a drive up part of Little Cottonwood Canyon while the road was still closed to see kind of what things look like. Take a listen.
People are telling me upwards of 6 feet that we received in the last couple storms. And with the immense snowpack already, spells disaster for Little and Big Cottonwood Canyons. With the amount of snow that came down, we knew that we were going to have avalanches. We locked down the canyon and tried to do control work, let avalanches come down naturally. And we had a lot of natural activity. And then we finally got in and started cleaning some of the avalanches.
What's been going on this winter has been, it just feels kind of unimaginable, really. You know, I grew up hearing about the winter of 1983-84, the flooding that happened, the avalanches. I've read a lot of that history, and to sort of realize about halfway through the winter that we were headed in this direction of really amounts of snowfall and weather that no one on this crew had really ever personally experienced, only really read about. And that's what's been so challenging, is that we don't have like personal experience to go off of when we're working up here. We have we're very good at our jobs, we're very methodical, and we're very professional. But until you can actually gain sort of like a personal experience with one of these big avalanche cycles, it's really hard to anticipate what's going to happen.
The slide paths are becoming so big, they're not following their natural route anymore. They're taking out more, it's eating more. Some of the equipment that we had to abandon the other night got buried in the slide. We had a loader that's about 14 feet tall, completely buried all the way to the roof. I stepped on the roof last night. Thank goodness though, don't worry, it made it, dug it out, started it up this morning, works like a champ.
Yeah, I absolutely love Jake's optimism too, because Jake has actually been in one of the canyons, in one of the vehicles 2 years ago.
That's right.
He was buried by an avalanche. So to see him up there smiling, he's worked for UDOT for like 8 years. I absolutely love it. He said, oh, we dug that thing out. It works like a champ. What I took away from that conversation, though, these slide paths, there's so many in Little Cottonwood. He mentioned they've even like deviated from their traditional slide paths, where they've kind of created their own new paths at this point. It's got to be a guessing game for
Well, when you have historic snowfall, you don't know what's going to happen, and these totals just show exactly what might happen when you have so much snow, and we're seeing it now up these canyons. Alta now inching its way closer to 900 inches. Last storm cycle picking up more than 5 feet.
I should have placed a bet with you earlier, because we had a feeling
There was
at
no
this point,
way.
we were getting to like 700. I'm like, come on, this is really going to happen.
I was like maybe 800, and now we're getting close to 900. Brighton at 850. Snowbird now with that latest storm jumped just into the 800-inch club. Solitude getting closer. Snow
That was
Basin,
the big one today.
That's
Yep.
the big one. That's 600 inches now. And Deer Valley getting very close to 600 inches, which hey, they might do with maybe a storm at the end of next week. But right now, Brian, the good news is that we want and we need to dry things out, right? And that is in the forecast for at least the next 6, maybe 7 days. With all this snow, this is probably where we're going to end up, where our peak snowpack is. course, we've been smashing those records for the last couple weeks. How much water is in that snowpack now at 30 inches, which is incredible. To put that in perspective, in 1983, we were at 26 inches, and that was the old record. Normal snow water equivalent is 15.8, and last year at 12 inches. So basically, we have 3 times the amount of snow right now compared to 1 year ago. And this satellite imagery really shows you the difference between a year ago. You can see on the left side of your screen, that's where we had just the snow, basically mid and high level ranges of our Utah mountains. And now, right now, we're seeing all that snow in northern, central, southern Utah, and even in the valleys here in April. Now for tonight, we have clear skies. It's still going to get quite cold. Overnight lows in the 20s in northern and central Utah, teens in some of our mountain valleys, and 9 in Evanston and Rock Springs. But tomorrow we start to really turn that corner. Look at these temperatures, not too bad. 50s in northern and central Utah. Logan at 44, 46 in Park City. Look at St. George, 70 degrees. Now with some of the warmer weather, there might be some minor flooding, but there is a flood watch out in Nevada for snowmelt this weekend and into early next week, especially those rivers and creeks and streams, areas that are prone to flooding. That might happen. There's no active warnings, but things are going to be running high and fast as we head into next week with the warmer temperatures. Lots of clear skies, though, for tonight. We'll have a few clouds roll in tomorrow afternoon. There is a storm to our west. Looks like it will mainly miss Utah and kind of fall apart. Maybe a stray shower by Saturday morning. Does not look impressive whatsoever. And as we head into your Easter, temperatures continue to climb and we'll have some sunshine. Looks really nice over the weekend. St. George, we're going to be near 70 degrees tomorrow, 74 on Saturday, and then look at Easter Sunday coming in at 80 degrees, mid-80s as we head into next week. Tuesday, we could get close to 90 in St. George. That's hot. Warmest weather of the year so far. 28 tonight, 52 in Salt Lake, 57 on Saturday, then the 60s are back on Sunday. Monday, we are in the mid-70s. Monday and Tuesday, that's our warmest weather of the season, and those temperatures will stay above normal until maybe the end of next week, Brian. That's when we have potentially a storm system rolling in. There's some uncertainty Thursday and into Friday. The good news about that storm, first of all, it doesn't look like it's going to be a huge one with lots of more snow, and it will stop that warming trend. So it's not like we're going to climb into the 80s by the end of the week. We need something to drop that warming trend just a bit. So just 3 days in the 70s. I think we're going to be okay with that.
I think it shows how much I paid attention to you in the 4 o'clock, because I completely forgot that you mentioned something coming up later on in the distance. I was so focused by the 7-0, the 7-5. I mean, a lot of people are. I can't be alone at this point.
And if you're really concerned about flooding, yes, there's going to be some minor flooding. The lower snowpack is going to melt. But compared to 1983, in late May, that's when temperatures were in the 80s for 7 days in a row, and that's when the snowpack really came down.
Going back to 1983, a soundbite we did not include there from the folks at UDOT, the coal pit avalanche chute, which is at the bottom of Little Cottonwood Canyon, hit the road the last few days. It's the first time it's hit the road since 1983.
Wow. Well, there you go. We have more snow in our mountains compared to 1983.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Thank you, Chase. As we continue to track the change in weather, download our 2 News weather app to know about changes in your neighborhood. If you're watching on your phone, switch to camera mode real quick. Scan the QR code right there. Get that live radar on your phone. The app is free to download. We were talking about flooding, and we will continue to talk about flooding. Plenty of sunshine today, but the real spring-like temperatures are still to come. So what will local creeks and rivers look like when the snowpack starts to melt? I think we have a general idea at this point. Let's head over to Lincoln Graves, live for us near Big Cottonwood Creek. This is in Mill Creek. Lincoln, how have crews been getting ready for what will likely come next?
Yeah, Brian, they're trying to make those waterways as open as possible for all of that snow melt, regardless of how fast it comes down, regardless of how much comes down. So one of the ways they do this is they go into those waterways, these creeks, these streams, and they really just clear out all of the debris that's in there that is gathered over the winter. We're talking branches that have fallen from trees overhead, perhaps trees have fallen over into the creek. As all of that debris gathers in a creek and snowmelt starts to go up, basically it functions as kind of a dam. So if you get really high runoff, that water will pool up behind that blockage and sort of
go and spill over the banks, and that's when you get flooding, because once it spills over the banks, crews really have no way to control that water. It goes to the lowest possible spot. Sometimes that's a basement nearby, sometimes it's an intersection, and depending how much water comes out of it, we could be dealing with a minor flood event or a big flood event. So they're really trying to get those waterways as clear as possible to make it as efficient as possible for that water to run through once the snow melt really kicks into high gear. Brian?
Lincoln, the video's amazing too. I mean, those guys are wading through the creeks. They're moving all sorts of branches to you today as they were doing this. Obviously, you were nearby.
Yeah, we were really close to them, and I was told that they have to look at, not just that one crew, there are multiple crews, but they have to look out for 600 miles of creeks and streams. We're basically talking City Creek to the north all the way to Little Cottonwood Creek. This is Salt Lake County crews having to look out for those creeks. So they do have an overall strategy for where they go and tackle, but they also take complaints from people. If you live next to a creek or a stream and you notice that there's a big blockage, you can call in and report it, and they will put that on the map. But a really hefty task for all of them. They start doing this really in late February or early March, and they go until May or June, even July, and they're really just kind of nervous to see what's going to happen with that snowpack melting. But right now they're moving as fast as possible to try and prevent any possible flooding they can. Brian?
Lincoln Graves for us. Man, they're putting on some mileage cruising through those creeks. Thanks, Lincoln. Hey, happening tonight, the Ball Creek, it could be a Ball Creek at this point. The Ballpark Community Council hosting a meeting to address flooding concerns. We're hearing that there are a number of residents that have reached out. They want some insight. So we spoke with Council Member Doug Flagler ahead of the meeting tonight. Here's what he had to tell me about what he's expecting.
Tonight, we're going to be focusing on flood preparedness and being with our neighborhood having quite a bit of coverage of a floodplain. We just wanted to be able to have residents ask questions of city and county officials and be able to answer some of their questions, because we've gotten quite a bit of feedback from residents that have had concerns about flooding in their neighborhoods.
What are those residents saying, just as an overarching sort of concern when it comes to the ballpark area with flooding?
You know, I think several people just have a lot of questions about what does being in a floodplain mean? What do they need to do to be prepared? I don't feel like there's been a lot of communication right now. And so people are just looking to have those questions answered. And the other component is I know quite a few people are concerned that there aren't any sandbagging areas within our neighborhood. It's quite a drive to go to get sandbags for us right now. Several years ago, we did have flooding in our neighborhood around Jefferson Park. And so, I mean, we know that we do have some areas that are flood prone. And so I think for residents are a little bit more concerned this year with the potential for greater flooding. And so they just like some answers to you know, what, because I think the average person doesn't understand what these flood maps even mean to them. And they don't realize that their homeowners insurance doesn't cover flooding. And so we're hoping to help get them some of those answers.
You know, I was talking to Doug about something because he mentioned that he had been looking into flood insurance.
Right.
And he mentioned that they've also taken lots of questions. I said, well, why don't you just watch 2 News Live and get those answers? Because I can think of at least 3 or 4 instances that we've talked about. Right. Flooding insurance, that it has a waiting period, 15 to 30 days. Apparently, as Christina told us last night, you can still get it, but it still has a waiting period at this point. So don't wait if you do want to.
It is still early April, and to think about the 1983 floods, not saying that's going to happen whatsoever, better infrastructure, but we have more snow up there. That happened late May and into early June.
You think things take a little bit of a turn here where those creeks or cricks start ripping this week?
We'll see. I think things are going to be running high and fast, but I don't think any major flooding because, again, temperatures in the 70s and not quite the 80s and 90s yet.
Okay, so it would need that. It's a quick warm up, but it would need a faster warm up, more.
Yeah, more higher temperatures, because even with the 70s here in the valleys, it's not going to be in the 70s in the mountains. So if you think about it, typically 10, 20 degrees colder in the mountains. So if we're in the 80s, near 90, they're going to be in the 70s, and that's when that snow really gets going and melting.
We want to hear from you at home, of course. How concerned are you that Utah's record snowpack could lead to a repeat of '83? Scan the QR code on your screen to weigh in. Right now, majority of you are very concerned. I mean, we've been talking about this, so I guess I'm not really surprised with the data to back it up. 42% of you saying very concerned, 30% a little bit concerned, and then some of you even saying we won't get it that bad. But Chase,
we don't really know.
If you were to weigh in on here, would you say that there's at least some concern? Given
I would say
the amount?
somewhat concerned for sure, because again, there is more snow compared to 1983, but there's also more people living in the valleys too. So we'll see how that kind of shapes things up, because it's been about 40 years since we've had this much snow, and we'll see when it all comes down. It really depends on those temperatures this spring and summer. We don't want to go to 90 overnight. We want to have this gradual warm up, which we're actually going to see this week, 60s and 70s. That's that's nice. That's where you want to be.
It's a good opportunity for us to also go back to 1983 and see what else was going on in the world. So we'll try to bring that to you in a 2 News Live coming up as well. That's Chase. I'm Brian. Thank you to everyone out there for watching. Of course, everyone who contributed here at the 2 News studios, from everyone in front of the camera and behind the scenes. We appreciate you and all you do for us. Have a great rest of your night. We're back with you tomorrow, Monday through Friday, 5:30. You know where we will be. Have a great night.